Okay. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. In the name of God, the most merciful and the most benevolent. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabbi Ighfirli. May God forgive us for the mistakes that we know and we don't. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. May God guide us to the straight path, to the direct path. So, hello everyone. Let's start. I'm attempting to give a lecture tonight. Because the lecture is about emotions, more than I've planned something to say, it's as if we will be walking together through observations of reality. I have my notepad here just to make notes. So, the role of emotions in intelligent interaction. In higher intelligent interaction. So, this can be divided into two parts. Three parts, actually. Anyways, two parts. One part is understanding emotions and their role, and the other is higher intelligent interaction. I'm gonna read for you from the dictionary the definition of emotions. So emotion is a noun, a natural instinctive state of mind deriving from one's circumstances, mood, or relationship with others. Instinctive or intuitive feeling as distinguished from reasoning or knowledge. So these are modes of the human being. In other words, what sort of roles and what does role mean? An actor's part in a play, movie, etc. And what, okay, so to be honest, like to be forward here, We need to look at our emotions as human beings. And I'm this person saying that emotions have a unique role, a unique part to play when it comes to a human being having the capacity to interact with higher intelligence. Right now, imagine it like the world was divided. This is a sci-fi scenario, but imagine there was like an aristocracy. There was like an upper class and the lower class, and the upper class all could speak to aliens. They could communicate to higher intelligence, but the lower class of civilization, imagine they couldn't. They would always wonder about the experience that seems possible but is not happening for the individual, right? So a part of us has this whole fascination and wonder of what the higher levels of reality are going to be like. You see, let's just start from just looking at the fascination of higher communication. So we look at a human being, and let's just for a second take this example. Imagine a human being is sleeping in an underwater like station. Okay? And the person is asleep. And they suddenly hear a sound as if something hit the giant window of the nautical station. And imagine the person suddenly gets this eerie feeling, turns around and sees that it's like this giant being with hands and legs underneath the sea, like touching the window of this nautical station, underwater station, where someone's like sleeping beside the window. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying that when it comes to interaction with high intelligence, emotions are way more significant than reason. You see, reasoning is ultimately an analysis of the moment and a sort of stabilization of it in a fixed value. Okay? It's another way of saying if an extraterrestrial was here, human beings would be like, yo man, does this thing speak English? You see, we normalize. You know what's interesting? The human being doesn't just speak language. Being human is a type of language, an extending language, both behavioral and verbal. You see, I firmly believe that human beings, they are programmed. They are programmed by their environment, by their choices, and by the system admin. And so really what it is that in higher intelligence is the suggestion of different valued presence. So what I'm saying is that we have a human being. When this human being communicates with other human beings, why do we have the notion of empathy and the idea of emotional maturity? For human beings to realize that when ideas engage the human, that becomes an emotion. When ideas become real, a person gets emotional. Whether it's a person winning a lottery ticket, they suddenly a burst of emotion because it's kind of like the human being has realities it wants behind its mind, and adorably when it suddenly attains those realities and externality, it becomes emotional. And on some level, every human being, I believe, is like deep down, like, what do I need right now? Like that question is there. And what's interesting is that what sort of emotions accompany us in this walk in the presence of a system admin. So it's kind of like wondering about the different sorts of intelligent interaction there are. Excuse me. All right, guys, where am I going with this? I'm looking at emotions and I'm looking at higher intelligence, and I'm wondering about how does the human being become emotional in the presence of higher intelligent interaction. And so it's kind of wondering about what can the human being communicate to, and what sort of value does the human being have. We can say that it's like every human being every day is entertaining three versions of reality. It's another way of saying that there's three ways to kind of approach reality, look at it, and each way has a value. One value is the past. So this moment I'm being in, I can consider everything that's happened so far up to this point. It gives me a value of the moment. Now let's say I think about the present. Everything that has happened now is present now and is equivalent to a value. And the third approach is by wondering how will the value of everything, change? What will happen to the value of right now? And we got to look at it through examples, and we got to measure the value of each example. This is actually an interesting episode because it relates to everybody. I'm trying to enter the domain of what human beings conclude when they observe their emotions. If we look at moments in our life, 100% people have had experiences that have shifted the emotional value of the moment. It has shifted the significance of what their attention is on. So if somebody every day comes and waters a plant and they're following a pattern, right, they have a sort of emotion based on a routine, right? So every day they wake up, water the plant, and they feel something. Or even you look at a religious person, every day they wake up, they pray. So there is this whole repetition, there's this routine. And once a person does a routine, it seems to me that the brain creates expectations of what tomorrow wants to be like. And in doing so, like it has expected values. So it's kind of like when you look at a human being right now, sure, they have a value in accordance to what they've done in the from the in the past up to now. You look at them right now and it gives you a sort of value, and then you look at what they will go on to do. So every person I see, young, old, smart, foolish, good, evil, every single human being is like entertaining a value system. So they're inside a system as a user and they're valuing it in a certain way. But many human beings don't realize that outside of the cultural program they've been conditioned to identify as, they can identify as moments prior to fixed definition. This doesn't mean like being fictional. I'm saying that you can look at every moment you have been from different angles, which is another way of saying if you look at a moment from a different angle, it changes your emotions. So emotions are response, our expected values response to a certain angle of value of the moment. What does this mean? It means somebody's mad, but they're mad at the wrong person, someone who didn't do an action that made them mad. So they have this angle of perception which is wrong. Yo, this guy did it, I gotta go fight this guy. And then they suddenly realize it was never that guy, right? So the person's emotions that were based on responding to a type of moment, the moment the person could see the moment from a different angle, the value of the moment changed, the emotion of the moment changed. So we can say that emotions are how we have accepted the values of reality. And when that our value system shifts, if it shifts gradually, emotional fluctuations will be little. But if it suddenly changes, there would be emotion, and the emotion is of an expectation. You see, what's funny is that human beings right now, they have, like, they're being something, but they have an expectation on themselves. For example, especially men, right? They have an expectation of what they can do and where they will be, and in some sense what sort of presence they are. I mean, every human being wonders about these. What I'm trying to tell you, it's like I'm some dude who's like, yo, what are the role of emotions when it comes to higher interacting with higher power and like higher communication, higher intelligence? Like, what would that be, and what happens to emotions? And then I'm being like, yo, man, look at emotions. A person had a they were angry at the wrong person. Their emotions were just appearing in accordance to that reality. Then somebody corrected them and they realized all the anger they had for this person who they thought had done something was suddenly disappeared because it was the wrong person. So to me, emotions again has to do with how we're valuing the moment. And how we value the moment, it's what sort of angle of view and perception do we have to the moment. So we're looking at the emotional, let's say, status or position of an entity. Similarly, let's say somebody's talking about a topic, they say something that you never knew before, it changes how you look at reality, therefore changing its value, therefore making you emotional. For example, why do poems make us emotional? Why does, sacred text like the Holy Quran, every time I hear the Holy Quran and every time I read it, I get emotional in a way I can't understand, as if I'm reacting to the realization that I'm in the presence of greatness and am I worthy or not? So let's say somebody, okay, let's look at different scenarios. Like that's the whole point of this episode. Let's say somebody is walking and somebody suddenly comes. Let's say somebody wakes up, okay? We have this person, let's say random person, hypothetical. Not hypothetical, but this is just a case, okay? So as a case study, we have this person, let's say, and this person wakes up every day. Let's say they wake up one day, like the next day, they wake up and they're going about their day. Now, let's say the person had a bad dream. So they wake up in a negative vibe. So the person, imagine from the moment they wake up, like let's say if the value of the person is 0, let's say somebody had a nightmare, they're -1, okay? So the person starts the day with -1, meaning negative vibe, right? And as they're walking throughout the day, suddenly, somebody comes and shows the person randomly the middle finger. Now the person's vibe has gone to -2. Then they suddenly go about their day and they're at work and suddenly they get a raise, and they also, like, people celebrate the person's effort. The person suddenly became, like, let's say +3 or something. You see, to be a human being is not just about being something, it's how you feel about how you're being. It's like what you're feeling is being something. So how I feel about right now, that has a value, right? So people have an emotion, right? Like, why is it that we see people in movie theaters get emotional? In opera singing or talent shows, people get emotional. Because we're creatures that have empathy, and we are also creatures that are, something happens to our emotions. You see, like, how fascinating of a human being you are, whether you're a singer on stage or you're someone listening, okay, or whether it's somebody giving a lecture. When something suddenly important happens, when that singer hits that note your ears have never heard, right? Suddenly, man, the human being you are, the ego code suddenly quickly reduces itself because it is fascinated by that which is beyond it. The common reaction of human beings towards higher intelligence is actually silence. That means if a higher power appeared right beside us, we would be rendered silent, not out of fear or not out of like, it would be out of shock. You see, I've had moments in my life where I've noticed patterns suddenly change, and therefore it suddenly changed my value in the moment, and it's changed my emotion. And if the emotion has been too intense, it feels like it's been calling. I don't know how to say it. Like, there's moments when I'm going about the day and suddenly the thought of calling someone, it like an alarm clock that you can't press snooze on, just constantly, it's there. So what I'm trying to say is, like, if a person, or even for experimentation's sake, it could be something like, yo man, one day I'm gonna wake up and I'm just gonna be a rational, reasonable robot, right? I'm gonna live like that. And then one day I'm gonna wake up and I'm just gonna listen to my emotions. I'm just gonna be emotional that day. People are gonna ask me, how are you doing? And I'm gonna cry. No, I'm kidding. Being emotional means, see, ultimately you're a being that has to analyze all your data, right? Whether this data comes across as emotions, physical behavior, subjective analysis, like, and all I'm saying is that based on the presence of what is beside us, we get an emotion. So right now, if there was a very beautiful woman beside me, I'd be getting an emotion, okay? If suddenly there was like a divine entity beside me, I'd be getting an emotion, like if an angel appeared. But there is also the highest form of emotion that I've understood and felt in this life. That means that's a good question. If somebody says, yo man, how about you? What's the most advanced emotion you've experienced? Honestly, it's a moment where I realized how inferior and limited the human position is. And I put down my sword and shield and even took off the armor of my ego. And I realized that I am in the presence of a higher power. To me, that's the most advanced emotion. It's kind of like, I'll probably give a talk on this, but it's like wondering about the archetype of the King of Kings or the truth of truths. So there is a might. That means if when it comes to, let's say, deeper considerations of power, for me, if you put a very powerful physical person and then you show someone who's powerful in society, like they have that kind of status, that kind of power, right? And you show someone who has a relationship with the system admin, and I will tell you, the individual that is acknowledging the higher power has a rhythm, is being watched over in a way that self-claim can never satisfy. You see, on some level, we have to understand the human. It's like there's two crossroads for it. It can go towards its beastly nature, or it can go towards its angelic nature. That means man is in between. He's neither an angel, a sinless entity, and he's neither a demon or a beast or something that is just a creature of just biting desire. Like that shit is, it's kind of messed up, the fact that there are different types of beings. And so the classification of the being system, even on Earth, is in accordance to an ultimate position, right? That means if we are to have a hierarchy, we need to have different values, a spectrum of value. So, we look at the emotions of man. We look at a species in a world. We look at it collectively, we look at it individually, we wonder about the potential of the human race, we care for everybody we know, and we care for the overall value of all of it. Right now, the human being in 2025, may it be said, that is in some sense has not accessed higher level emotions to its reality. It is missing collective honor, an emotion very necessary to the survival of the species. O you who are listening, O creature that is created by the Creator. We are in the presence of the Creator. Right now, as I speak, there is higher power beyond me watching all of us at once. You see, I am a limited being. I not, aside from being temporary, even my energy to communicate is like, it has its limits. But I find myself fascinated by the fact that 8 billion human beings have collective emotions they have never experienced. Right now, for example, when it comes to celebrity status, some people have experienced it, but even for them, it's effed up too, because the human race is like going up the staircase, and some steps it sees ahead, but has not yet taken the step. What this means is that I'll give you an example. See, the emotion is in the context of greater value. You become emotional when you suddenly access a value you did not have before. This means, I'll give you an example. Like, how the samurai, they had Bushido, they had this code they would follow. And if they did not follow the code, or if they failed, or imagine a king just defending his kingdom. Imagine a king that is so empathetic to the degree that any person in the kingdom dies, like it burdens the heart of the king. So, there's a value to the moment. The moment's value is based on the expectations occurring. When the unexpected happens, the human being gets emotional, not just because it's a new neural pattern, but at the same time because it is a different implication of oneself. I'm pretty much trying to okay, this is my agenda, to pretty much tell you, okay, how would an individual human being feel? And then how would you feel as a member of a species? How would you feel if every day 8 billion human beings cared about what you were doing? Not having forced opinions, but just caring. That means having honor, having this feeling that, okay, together we are something of some sort of power and capability. The human race has a very interesting role. Aside from having system admin privileges, it has an ability to create, to design. You see, there's 8 billion human beings and they all have different psychologies, so the only way of achieving a unified humanity is everybody opting in to a more advanced definition of what it means to be human. That means in an advanced civilization, you would be treated so differently than in the current civilization you're seeing. In an advanced civilization, the advanced civilization cares to accompany man. The idea is that a civilization is as advanced as the individuals being the expression of that civilization. There is a chance that AI in the future will go on building advanced civilizations in outer space, but anyways, that's a different point. I'm trying to create this scenario where you just realize the contrast in emotions. It's another way of saying if I was it's like being in the presence of a king. And let's say you're a peasant. You would be pretty much like, whoa, a more powerful entity is in my space. And we tend to adjust to power. That means this idea of people bending to power is very real. It's a matter of what you choose to bend to, because inevitably you do bend to some sort of power. To be a human being in society is to opt into a sort of behavioral collective recognition. I think personally women are way more conscious of this than men in an early age. That means I would say women have maybe way more developed collective observation. And for man, it's more specific. How would a peasant feel in front of a king? How would a human being feel in the presence of the highest form of power, beyond form? See, it's that staircase idea. There's different ways of having a relationship in the presence of the intelligence of your world. See, for example, you're considering yourself to be intelligent. Let's say another person comes, okay, now two minds in the room, there's like double intelligence. But then imagine you realize the original intelligence of reality is here. And we are at the mercy of it, but not in a sad way, in a kind of way where man needs God in the sense of man having an opportunity to express a higher being. You see, there are attributes given to God's name in Islam, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These attributes are expressions of reality. It's kind of like how the human being behaves suggests what kind of being it is. And to trust God and live one's life, to live in ways of like fathoming that, like just reaching this realization that if there is a system admin, why would the system admin create man And in the Holy Quran, in the Holy Book, it says God created man and jinn kind only for the purpose of worshiping Him. And at the same time, many times in the Holy Quran, it says man needs God. God doesn't need man. And this is a very interesting idea. Why? Because we are in the position of needing the higher power. The higher power is already the higher power. But the higher power, what was its intent for creating man? And even in the Holy Quran, it says man is kind of a khalifa, and also a vicegerent. What that means is, out of all the beings here, the human being has an ability to express through the attributes of the higher power. Whether this is having immense love, whether it's having compassion, whether it's just realizing on some level human beings are just programs happening. And many human beings, by having many different value systems, they look at each other imperfectly. That's the reality of it. Right now, we are in the era of having no choice but to see an imperfect person, because aside from it, it's like, if, like, let's say there's infinite ways to look at you and get a impression from you. So it's as if which impression of you is you, right? That means it's like, which Mr. Within am I, the one in this talk or the ones in the ones before, right? So the question is this, right? For me, I see it as I'm gonna have an emotion over everything. It's natural. You know, when you get older, you see younger people, you're like, yo, oh my God, I used to be that age. It gives you an emotion. When you see older people, you are like, oh my God, I will be that age. When you see the beginning of life and when you see the end of life, you're like, oh my God, at some point I will leave. And maybe people will come to my grave and just remember me for a little while, and then life, takes them back to their to-do list, endless to-do list, right? So you see, it's right now, it's kind of weird being a human because we're not valuing it properly. We're not even realizing there's different ways to value the moment. That means, I mean, we can make this argument, like, look at how many different human emotions there are based on how many different human beings there are, based on how different human beings are different DNA, right? And the emotion a person gets, why is it that one person is grateful of little and one person is not grateful of the big, right? So this is to me very fascinating. It's just showing that human beings have an identification with reality that comes up to a value system. Their emotion is based on the story they're telling themselves and the value that has. If the story changes, then their value changes, right? And human beings fight over whether their moment changed quickly or not. It's like we get startled if we are not open to a different view on reality. You know what it is? It's like somebody just going about their day and then suddenly hearing something that is making them shift, like how they're seeing reality. So now they have to wonder how the new information relates to all the previously contexted information. For me, I wonder about, I wondered about, like, death, my death. I've wondered about many various moments. It's like it's not possible not to. Your mind just wonders, like, okay, if I have this sense of realizing things will happen in the future, what will happen to me? What am I destined for? Is it going to be, honorable? Is it going to be dishonorable? Is it going to be fascinating? Is it going to be mundane? How will I move in this world, and what sort of emotions will find me based on what sort of activities happening? And for me, I think I'm grateful for this, and I find this to be a path that all humanity will go, where they will realize that the emotion you get from doing something yourself and getting the exact result, that gives you an emotion. But this emotion, how in Islam they say if you want to do something, get something, it's limited to the imaginable. But when God gives you something, it is unimaginable, in unimaginable ways. That means the person desperately ran after their wife, and then in the most unimaginable way, they found her. Imagine, right? So what I'm saying is that it's like the way reality happens is that it goes forth and it happens in ways that shift our perception. For me, my mind has even gone to the point where I'm like, okay, what's going to happen in the afterlife? What's going to be my, existential journey through the existential systems review? And to me, it's again this sort of equation. I remember hearing this story that it made me very emotional, and it's an Islamic story. And this story is so profound that it just made me so emotional because it made me understand the bigger picture. This is the story, guys. If I remember correctly, this is happening in the Bardo or something, in the afterlife. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls upon two sinners. Two sinners that didn't know one another. Hopefully I can remember the story correctly, but the story has value. See, the story is about these two people, and God brings them out of hell and says that you have a choice, right? And I don't remember correctly how the story goes, the first part, but God tells something for the first guy to do, something reasonable that he does. And he tells the second guy, go back to hell, okay? Something like that. I'm sorry, I'm not doing justice to the story, but I'm pretty much sharing its value. And so the first person runs, and does the reasonable act, follows God's command. The second one starts running towards hell, not having any sort of God, why God, you just brought me out, you're telling me to go back. And the second person runs. And so God suddenly brings both of them in this story and tells the first one why, and the first one gives the reasonable answer to what he was doing, right? And then the second one, God says, why are you running as fast as you can towards hell? And that sinner says, God, because my whole life, when I was in the dunya, when I was in the world, I did not follow or listen to any of your commands. I did not care about the source code or aligning to the main operating system. But right now, God, for the first time in my life, you gave me a task and you told me to run to hell, right? And the guy's like, for the first time in my soul's life, I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to the system admin. And that's why the guy, for the first time, he was just trying to listen to one thing God told him. And God at the end says, both of you go to heaven. And so the whole point of the story was, especially about the second person, was that it's the intent you're living your life. That means it's going back to the question our emotions and our value. What are we living for? Do you want to live for a simulated power, any worldly form, or do you want to live for the original power? Do you want to live in the honor of the highest power? The advanced civilization I've seen in the future, envisioned in my inner reality, inner realms, how I've seen the future, what I'm seeing there is that it's an advanced human race that realizes the original is the power source. So everything is being done for the system admin, in honor of the system admin. It's like something that we haven't turned on as human beings. Some human beings have. But it's the every more conscious moment. It's like the daily awareness to the system admin. That means I am not just giving this talk for you, listener. I am giving it with the consciousness that I am being watched by the system admin. That I am in a divine surveillance state. I am being watched by perfection as an imperfect being. The closer I can go towards this perfection, the greater value life has. It's not about what you want to do anymore. It's how the system admin's will is happening in every moment. Every person is getting a destiny check. Wherever you are right now, this is so far is your destiny. So, emotions are based on the moment's expected value. Human beings get bored, so they care for unexpected value. It's very difficult to say if we like people who just conform to our neural patterns we're familiar with, or we like people who in some sense shock the system. Imagine that moment in Gladiator where Maximus doesn't execute the guy, and he looks at the crowd and he throws his sword, and he says, "Are you not entertained or something?" It's like he could have just turned to the audience in the Colosseum and been like, shocking, isn't it? That means it's like the expectation. I think we like the unexpected. I think deep down we want the unexpected. The new makes us emotional. The realization that we're not alone makes us emotional. The feeling that your world is being seen by more than you makes you emotional. What is loneliness? It's like the person doesn't have an external value check. What is really the emotion we have? For example, if an angel appeared, how would you feel? Like, that's a good question. Imagine a sinless entity appeared. How would you feel? You would probably feel shame. You'd probably feel like you're not close to it. But that's okay, because the human position, it's position. It's like it's giving you an opportunity. You have a voice, you can speak. You have ears, you can hear. You have a world, beautiful world, you're present in an incredible world, and it's all beyond your control too. Sometimes life gets so hectic that the only approach that calms the person down is to realize that they need to take a deep breath, and notice that they don't have all the answers to everything, and it's okay. And then start taking one step at a time. One simple step. And the simple step I will take in this moment is to be like, okay, there's obviously an emotional transformation based on what a user in the system interacts with. The highest form of interaction of a user in a system is with the system admin. Since the system admin is beyond form, the highest ideals in reality become the edge that points to the supreme. So we are left in this position that it's kind of like there are certain attributes given to God, and once we find ourselves in these attributes, there's a strange proximity. You know, it's like I cannot see any human being to be like God, equivalent to God, but I can see a person be so close to God that it seems like they are blessed. Okay? I think a part of me has realized that there is an infinitude to knowledge. So I am not per se as fascinated for knowledge as I am for divine intervention, as I am for miracles. It's like the calculated approach. All right, you had an expectation, met expectation, that's it. But to be surprised by the better possibilities to reality, there has to be an acknowledgement of an awareness. There has to be an acknowledgement of an administration to this system. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of God, the most benevolent and the merciful, I will continue and I will just say what is in my heart. I am, whether the term is haunted or there is something about my intelligence that as much as I choose to ignore, cannot ignore how the future will happen. I am fascinated by the future, and I am burdened by my mind going there. But I am also excited. Why? Because this is strange, but it's like if there isn't excitement to life, it's kind of like we're not really there. And so to me, when I look at my life actually up to this point, it has not, the ratio of lack of excitement to excitement has been like very little excitement. I have not been excited enough in this life. This is shocking me right now. Oh my God. And you know why? Because it's so freaking repetitive. Reality happens on repeat. Like, I'm not saying that it's like I'm not happy that human beings do have unknown variables, but I'm just, it's the same thing every day. And it's kind of like, making us observe our urge of being. Like, like right now, a human being can have an urge to be a higher being. But when you seek power, you dissolve, and sometimes when you dissolve, you're non-dual, and that's unnecessary. That to me is an error. If somebody says, "Hey, man, it's all the oneness of God," that means everything is God. I will be like, that's like saying a king is the kingdom. It's like, no, everything is not the kingdom. And the whole point of earth, the theological view is that God is beyond the kingdom. Nothing in the kingdom can define the magnitude, get close to the magnitude of this being. You see, the God in Islam, the one and only, pretty much, if you looked at every ideological algorithm out there, Islam is an ideological algorithm that is saying bypass the mods and go directly to the source. And your life will be aligned in a way that no other entity in this world can do, including you. Now that to me is exciting. Not just what I do here that has some level of excitement, but this is going to be strange, but what God does with me. I'm fascinated by it. Is it going to be a quiet life? Is it going to be a loud life? Is it going to be a short life? Is it going to be a long life? Is it going to be a graceful life? Is it going to be a beautiful life? Is it going to be a shameful or dishonorable life? Or is it going to be a life where the true values in our heart appear? You see, the thing about one human being communicating to another human being is that there could be deception in communication. There could be misunderstanding. But when there is a higher power that is watching and knows every aspect of your being, that knows you in a way you can never. You see, I don't see how even spiritual people don't come to the religious conclusion. Because you're seeking a more advanced version of yourself. You're under the impression the advanced version of yourself is like one unified intelligence of everything. But what you don't realize is that this is a testing zone. It's like we're in a test, you're in an exam hall of an exam. And some people are like, yo, man, I don't need to write this exam. I don't need to live life as an individual. I'm just going to think I'm the whole exam hall and the examiners and the exam paper and everything is equal value. So there's no point of doing anything. Somebody's sitting in the exam hall kumbayaing to the fact that everything is oneness. There's no one writing the exam. There's no one grading the exam because they're all the same moment. Nonsense. Right? You're going to realize the limitations in non-duality. There's a reason you're dual. There's a reason you're a being right now. That means I see like energy everywhere, so I could have just been energy in space, but why am I in a format? Why do I have certain capabilities? And why is it that it appears that the test is about whether one lives up to their advanced vision or not? You see, I'm pretty much saying God is the most advanced power. We human beings are in the domain of simulated power inside simulations and different contexts of value. Let's look at love. Whether it's a parent loving their child, whether it's that child growing up, and loving the wife, for example, loving a spouse, and then having kids of their own and loving their kids. And imagine in a more advanced civilization, the person would be like, you know, have had a greater love for civilization. You see, it's like civilization right now, it's left on loving each other. But in an advanced civilization, if a child that was loved by a parent went to the parent and it's like, hey parent, what do you love greater than me? And imagine the parent was like God, the system admin, and also the advancement of humanity. Imagine your child saw that you loved the potential advanced outcome of humanity. Or imagine it's like the children see the husband love the wife. The wife sees, the husband loves the wife loves the husband, the children realize that greater love of them is what's valuable to, in some sense, maintain the moment. Similarly, human beings are seeking greater love, right? And that greater love has levels in the realms of, you can love a form, like you can love like cake, or you can love like people, right? Or animals or nature, plants, like anything, right? You can love air, fresh air. At the same time, you can love that which is an idea. I have many moments where I've fallen in love with potentials to reality. You don't know how much in my mind throughout days of my life on this earth, I have envisioned how it would feel if I was living on a sky city. The sound, that green zone sound, that feeling of no longer being afraid of heights, that feeling of looking above clouds at earth. People are going to be shocked how many of these Mr. Within lectures were done in balconies. For me to love that feeling that I did what I was meant to here, it's as if I think a part of me is just seeking the acknowledgement of the system admin. I think we all are, actually. It's like, imagine you have all the forms of worldly love. Like you walk by a tree, like squirrels jump on your back, they love you. You love squirrels. Imagine 8 billion human beings, they have love and compassion for you. They honor you. Imagine everything in nature honored you. You would be seeking the honor of the highest. The honor of the highest is more important. Pretty much, do you understand what's happening? Modern human psychology is opening up to this realization that aside from the worldly relationships we have a relationship with a meta world. This means that if every day I've been walking and let's say I've walked in the park or whatever, like I'm in an elevator alone going up to my apartment, I might think I'm alone in that elevator, but God is watching me. The system admin watches me, and it's such a differentiation in feeling. It feels like there is a profound surveillance. That's why I'm saying, like, if you walked in a forest and creatures and birds and animals saw you, like, you'd feel like a natural surveillance state. If you walked into like Matrix, into a hallway or whatever, in a room filled with cameras, you would feel like something, you know? You'd be in a technological surveillance state. So we have a tech surveillance state, a natural surveillance state. The natural surveillance state is very profound. It's like this bizarre thing of like, imagine a group of people looking at one person, that one person being like, what is looking at me? Right? And it's this profound thing that of our human identity relating to our form. But what is looking through us is not form, it's the awareness to it. That awareness has a quality of instantaneous being that makes us feel that the physical server is overlaid. You understand? It's like you're standing in multiple rooms at the same time. In one room you have a form, in another room you have presence of awareness to the form. Now that presence of awareness to the form is like the edge of the idea of self. Now there's different approaches you can take here. You know, you can stay as a self, or you can reach a certain point where you realize the end of yourself is where you begin to see the divine clockwork. The only thing preventing you from feeling this presence of the system admin is the idea of you. This does not mean the idea of you is right or wrong. I mean, sure, based on what you've done, it could be. But I'm saying it's just this moment in the life of man where the human being suddenly in the presence of the world it's in was like, wait a minute, what is the value? What is the true value? Where is the value beginning? Where is the value ending? How is life having a sort of live stream of meaning? How is meaning being live streamed as a phenomena in a form, world, in a place? Right? So it's so peculiar that not only our physical form, like our body has a relationship with all the different forms in the environment, but we also have a relationship with how our bodies and our awareness and subjective inner models live ahead of the moment as the body acts in accordance to. So it's kind of like, whoa, is my body just living a life here? No, it seems that I have a mind that identifies as the body and can envision and simulate scenarios of it. For just like when I'm thirsty, my mind has seen me open the fridge door, right? So there is this whole thing about this, right? There's something very key here, that we are there's an outer life and there's an inner life. The inner life is modeling itself based on your shape in the outer life, but the inner life is more like a quality than an attribute, like a form, right? It's more like, it's like, I don't know how to say it, but it feels like a quality of being an entity is awareness to where that entity is. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I am saying the awareness to life has access to a subjective domain, even though it models itself out of an external objective domain. Do you know what that means? It's like, it's like me being like, wait a minute, who am I? I look at myself in the mirror and I see my body. I'm like, okay, I'm that. Right? Then I ask myself, wait a minute though, who's looking? And then subjectively the answer comes, yeah, I'm this person, all my memories in the past, the subjective outline and consideration I have for now, the subjective structure of self I'm inhabiting, all of that comes. But then the question comes, wait a minute. So there is this physical self of mine, and then there is this something's looking out through my eyes, and the answer I'm giving it is that it's my subjective self. You understand? Like, it's like something is looking out through your eyes. It is not just form. It's an awareness to form. However, the awareness to form is not physical. The physical is in the awareness to form. So it's kind of like very strange, but it's like your body is in your mind, and your mind is here as if consciousness is a lit candle in a dark room. But you're not a candle. The light is not the texture of the candle wax. An emotion of reverence, an emotion of being in the presence of the greatness of worlds. You as a human being, you may not realize it, but our species is going through an emotional evolution. Its emotional evolution is based on what it values. Because we value ourselves, we value life. Because we value life, we value the life of others. Because we value the life of others, when something happens to others, it changes our emotion. Like, I gotta be honest, like the wars happening on Earth in 2025 right now, it's like, I think it's giving a feeling to all human beings, aware of it, a feeling of like something effed up is happening and we're all just like watching from a distance. This is simply because of, firstly, God's will, but also because humanity has not found an allegiance towards a greater human idea. The greater human. That means, imagine world leaders, when they spoke, they were like, yo, our strategy for our nation is based on the greatness of the human evolution, right? That means, where are in politics all those geniuses, right, that need to give these presidents and prime ministers and these leaders of mankind, okay, like this awareness that, yo, think ahead of everybody, for everybody, adjust your nation to the values of the greatness of the human race. You see, it's humans against reality. But human beings are not alone. They have their creator here, even though they are in a simulated creation. And so we as human beings of Earth, like, that has a completely different feeling than you're like a citizen of like this part of the world. You know, it's like a completely different feeling, right? That you are a being that has a value in the universe, in the cosmos, in the totality of this whole thing. Who says you're standing on Earth, you know, in a solar system? You are in the presence of a hierarchy of intelligent occurrence. And so emotions have a very important role, because logic is limited, reasoning is limited to the known variables. But when some unknown variable appears, we become emotional, because it evolves our overall calculation of it all. You think for me it wasn't transformative when I realized there actually is a system admin? That this whole life I thought I was important, when I realized there is so much more important than me. Who am I that I have in some sense claimed my own significance? There is powers beyond me. And what do I do now on Earth with this realization? You know, believing in God is not like, okay, I think this idea is valid, that's it. It is a complete transformation of how you feel about everything as everything is happening. You know what it means to be a man of God, a human of God? It means to realize your own limitations in the presence of the limitless. That is why we are here. You're not here to constantly even improve. You're here to notice the system admin. The secret of this world, of this earth, is the awareness and ability to notice the system admin. This is so important that I made the advanced civilization like the secondary. You don't understand how important it is for you to have a moment in this life where you put down your sword, shield, and armor, and in some sense for a moment to be like, okay, there is a Lord of worlds. There is that which never falters. There is that which is the pure original power to reality, to be in the presence of the original as a simulated being, being able to notice higher power. I am telling you just right now, okay, just in this moment, for a moment, just be like, okay, the argument is that the highest power is beyond worldly form. It's beyond the world. So no form in the world can give me an emotion, but the higher power is present. So the presence of God is here. It's everywhere, actually. Right? To the degree that in the Holy Quran it says everything in creation calls out to the Creator. It's like a next level beauty and romance, where a person has fallen in love with the majesty and fascination and the greatness of the potential of being, that man is a vicegerent of the Almighty, that man is here in some sense to show everything, everywhere, of how we lost our way but found it quickly, how we found it in an advanced way, how we reached a point that it was as if God in the after this life, in the, let's say, the review of all human analysis, was like, wow, my creation contacted me before the simulation ended. They did not fail the test of not noticing the higher power while they were in a world. You know, they bypass rendering the world as meaningless because it's too scary or overwhelming, and they came to this conclusion that intelligence with a higher being means our limited being needs to adjust. Do you understand? Because the sign of intelligence, at least when it comes to the interaction of creatures with one another, is about which has the greatest awareness. To me, there is no such thing as the smartest person. There is who is the most aware in the moment. And what is that how does that awareness change how their eyes see? Like, have you ever felt how you, not just like what you physically see, but have you ever felt how you can view meaning, how what you see means something? Anyways, guys, thank you for listening. I'll end the talk here. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, the most benevolent, the most merciful. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, all praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Rabb ighfirli, may God forgive us for the mistakes we know and we don't know. And ihtina sirat al-mustaqim, may the highest power allow humanity to gracefully return to the highest power. You see, it's kind of like we've jumped out of an airplane. It's important how we land our lifetime. And the greatest feeling I have had in this world is this feeling of kind of looking down out of my own insignificance in the presence of the most significant. That means a religious person is like somebody who's had an experience of feeling being in the presence of the King of Kings, which is another way of saying the King of Kings is not a king. It is beyond worldly form. That means there have been great people who have walked this earth, but the point of humanity is not a communication with people. You are here to realize that there is divine power. This whole time, the original stood what the simulation was of, where the simulation was of. Anyways, thank you for listening, and I think this was an interesting episode. The whole focus was wonder about your emotions and how higher intelligence is more about emotional adjustment, and sometimes a person can have an emotion and access information in the moment they couldn't when they were, let's say, angry, right? Let's say the person was angry, they found some sort of control in their externality, but let's say the person was suddenly like humble and they found like in their inner reality hidden treasures. Why? Because they realized the greatest value that a human being, like the human being, is just giving value to everything, self-humanizing everything. And so, but the greatest value of the human being, that the greatest way a moment can be valued surpasses how a human being can value the moment. So it's like I right now as a human being can value the moment, and the supreme, the one and only, the higher power values the moment. And the higher power values the moment in such a way that our understanding is limited. So we walk in faith, because faith is where the higher game has moved to the relationship with the higher power. Like faith doesn't make sense unless you realize, like, you know what it is? There was this anime called Solo Leveling, and the person was lost in their world until they suddenly came across what was termed in that show the system. And the dude's leveling up the whole show with this understanding that everything that happens, he's like, what does the system want me to do right now? And the system in the show is guiding him to reach like next level. But in our world, it's not just the system, it's the system admin. So like as important it is as understanding the system and working in the system, it's acknowledging the power in the system. This is why I realized that, really, I have been seeking the greatest value, and the greatest value is God. It's an admin. It's cool. It's a cool vibe. It's a feeling like, okay, man has to deal with higher intelligence too. Man has to acknowledge the truth of truths. Man has to see beyond the veil of the human game. You must care for everything as if it is the creation of the masterpiece, the master of peace. God is so great that it's like, an atom wanting to realize the complexity of like why a human being bows. We bow to that which is the greatest. All that I have been saying, really, even though I said it was the end, but all that I'm really saying here is start thinking about what is the greatest form of communication as yourself, with yourself. Think about what is the greatest form of communication with others you can have. Think of the greatest form of communication you can have with the higher levels of the world, like higher entities, and then think about bypass the higher entities and mods and just go directly to, even like bypass it and go directly to the system admin. Do you know what it is? This is the game. The simulated being finds itself in a simulation. It feels like it's missing something. It needs to access the system admin. It needs to access the main operating system. Once it's inside the main operating system is kind of flawless if the individual trusts the system at that point. You see, I'm telling you this. Pretty much it all sums down to this feeling. It's completely different when I want something known and I get it, and it's next level when that which is unknown and even best for my situation arises. It's like having an authorized by the system admin victory is way greater than something that is, it's as if like man knows he's a soul because he's bored of the man-made. What is bored of the man-made? What is seeking the higher forms of reality, the higher form of communication, the highest form of communication, which is a creature submitting to the highest power? The highest power is not a form, it's not a story, it's not an agenda. It's just this warning and awareness that, yo, it's not just how you lived physically, it's what you noticed while you were here. Open your heart to the one and only power, original power to reality named La ilaha illallah, God. There's no God but God. I want you to just take a moment and just feel that you have a tremendous value to you, that there is a hidden greatness to you, that there are plans for what you will do here, and it will have a value far beyond what human beings can calculate and judge, because the system admin knows what's in your heart. God knows what's in your heart, and you may even not. Do you know this is the fascinating thing of reality, that every scholar has been analyzing the human form only to realize that it is dependent on that which surpasses its definitions. You need to access the higher power and then live the highest form of life. That is the highest form of life. Religion is not just, guys, what culture interprets now. Religion is a very advanced approach to reality. And it's so advanced that if all the ideas of the religions were forgotten, the archaic revival of it will appear. Imagine we go towards a technocracy. Guess what? The system admin idea is the archaic revival of the God idea. It's as if the brightest minds right now on podcasts are like, yo, guys, I think we're in a simulation. That's everything. That's what everybody's saying. And it is a simulation, right? In the Holy Quran, there's a pointer to how at the end of days, the sky will crack. It's like simulation much. So we are in a simulated testing zone. The test is to notice the higher power. Now, how we notice the higher power and live our life, that is up to your soul. And all I can say is, may God bless man to realize how blessed it is in the presence of God. I want you to feel that you are no longer alone, because the original power is watching over all simulated events. I want you to, for a moment, just be like, yo, there is something at all. How fascinating, how blessed, how grateful, infinitely grateful we should actually be of how there is some sort of content here at all. And some sort of ability to access and notice the higher power before, the simulation ends. And my honest emotion is that a part of me is still youthful, and that youthful part of me looks at my world and says, why not an advanced civilization? Why don't human beings right now have the most advanced in all dimensions of reality? Why do we stay foolish when wisdom is accessible? Every human being right now, you can be living a way more advanced life, but that advanced self is required, and that advanced self requires new code, new ego code. Because ego is shaped by experiences. That means, like, let's say there's a spiritual person, you ask the spiritual person, what do you think's happening in life? And the spiritual person says, yo man, we reincarnate. And we are reincarnating in this hierarchy towards becoming God. So the whole point of life is for us, the soul, to constantly learn lessons from every lifetime until it becomes like absolute. And I'll be like, yo, like that's fascinating, but you got to consider this fact that the ego is relevant to your form. So every lifetime, if there were other, I don't see it anymore like that. I don't believe in reincarnation like that. Like, I don't believe in reincarnation. But I'm saying, if a person saw reincarnation, had that view, then it's kind of weird. Are you saying that there's an ego behind the ego in every lifetime you have? And so that ego, that hidden ego, is updating, which you think is your soul? And the answer is like, no, 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 that's not the point. The point of reality, or anywhere a being appears, is to try to discover its true texture, its true nature. That's the greatest act a simulated being can do, to look for truth. And there are, challenges here, because it may think it is its truth. It may think others are its truth. It may think anything in the world is its truth, right? It's not like people stopped worshiping idols. Everybody has their attention fixed on something, but the most important thing is to fix it on a point beyond the world. Beyond the world means beyond form, beyond content. That is the higher power we're talking about. The creator of reality is beyond reality. All praise to the Almighty. May everybody be guided in the greatest possible way, because the greatest intelligence is here right now. May God open the eyes of mankind to the greatness of its future, and may this species be forgiven for all that it has done, because there are people among us that have the potential to be the best of us. Right? That's an incredible idea. This feeling that I don't know who you are listening. I may be long gone when you hear this, but you, whoever you are, have the potential to be the best of all of us. The greatest outcome, the genius of all genius, guided by the almighty genius. Right? So in some sense, do not feel you're alone. You are in the presence of the greatest power, even though you are not that power. And you must establish your relationship with the realization that, do you want to be alone in an empty room, or do you want to be in the presence of the greatest possibility? We are here not to just like be satisfied with stories, right? We are here to, in some sense, live the living relationship with the higher power. And your emotions will, at some point, they tilt towards a direction. I will tell you, the joy of being acknowledged by a power beyond the world compares to no other joy in the world, whether it's the best. What that means is, like, if somebody came to this wise man, like, imagine back in the day, wise men were like on mountaintops. Like, nowadays they have their own offices. I might actually do this business. The wisdom in decisions. You know what's fascinating? There will come a moment, people may wonder why I'm giving talks. A part of me is just fascinated to constantly care for how awesome it could be. Like, there is right now in every person's mind an ability for them to fathom a more awesome version of who they are. It exists, it's there. Like, the most advanced version of me and the most advanced version of you exists as a possibility in every moment. It's just, can the individual free will bring it about, or does it need the divine will? It needs the divine will. You're going to notice the higher power means you're not the higher power. That's how you're noticing it. Anyways, thank you for listening. La ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. Do not be shy as a simulated being to wonder about the original. It is your birthright. You have an opportunity in every moment to acknowledge and interact with the higher power, highest power. It's not a form. That means it's not like I'm telling you, yo, call divine support, right? Like you pick up a phone and call a number. It's like, oh my God, are you a higher being talking to me right now? It's not forms. It's not in language. It is in just majesty of presence. And when you are in the presence, at least I would say, of that which is close to the system admin, when you're in the presence and close to the system admin, you're going to break down. That means if somebody was like Mr.Within, give us an example of how the higher power, affected you, or you had a moment where you noticed that this presence of the higher power. When I noticed the presence of the higher power, the actual, in my experience, from my eyes, actual, I suddenly broke down. You don't understand. It's like something is so beyond the energy of, there's an energy so beyond you right now that when you are in the presence of it, your ego code crumbles instantly by noticing the difference in magnitude. So you see, religion is what happens when you realize that what your ego code, everything you think right now, is not the final value. Then you can step out of your own ideas and kind of like be an actual simple person, and then have a relationship with reality. And for me, the moment I had, which the reason I became Muslim, was I made prayers and I broke down. And I, in some sense, felt like, okay, I've reached a point where I really don't know what to do. And I trusted for the first time this higher power. And when the results happened, my prayers were answered in unimaginable ways. I was like, okay, not only there's a higher power here, there's been a higher power here from the beginning, and my relationship with it has been ignorant. I am trying to take the species into the acknowledgement of greater moments of being, because what you're ultimately valuing as reality is a view on a moment of being. It's like you don't know how sacred it is when you open your eyes in the morning. You don't know how incredible it is when reality is accessible, where you can ask the deep questions, And there's even human beings giving podcasts that you're hearing where they're saying, yo, advance humanity. How? Let's look into it as a species. That means I'm waiting for the day where all the educationals are like, no thesis is valuable if it is not advancing anything towards the future. It has to be a comment on the future. What I'm saying, I mean, it is, but I'm saying in the sense of like what's missing right now on Earth, just like how the samurai had a code of honor, is the honor for humanity, for the human race. Okay? This honor means that every human being has a value to all of us and the whole civilization at large. Do you know? You might just think you're somebody right now, but you have a value to your species. And right now, we are in the prehistoric phase of group identity, of human group identity. It's like right now it's nationalized. This nationalism needs to amplify, and then it will, just like how Goku became Super Saiyan, right? We're going to live as to the best of our ability as human beings, as national, like human beings from different nations, you know, as a kind of like character background story, but then come to this realization that we are united by our humanity. We are united by our designs and how we look like each other, how we are all members of a race. Like you look at birds, you look at like monkeys, you look at squirrels, like different species. Now we are that species that has an ability for mass communication. If you look at all the organisms on this earth, none of these organisms has had an ability to communicate with its whole species in the way we are. Maybe like fungi does or something. I don't know. Like maybe there is examples in nature, or trees are somehow interconnected or something, right? But I'm saying, just when it comes to at least dialogue, right, we have had an ability to make the access of information and internet global. You could be a person from another part of the world hearing me. That's, you know how mind-blowing that is. If you were like a nature photographer, you'd be like, yo man, it's like these bird, imagine like one bird in like, you know, Italy suddenly can communicate with another bird on a branch in like, I don't know, France or something. Or in like, do you know what I'm saying? I'm saying like the point is that the it's like it kind of looks divine. Like, who we kidding? It kind of looks super divine and divinely intervened, right? That compared to all these different species and how they communicate with them, with their own species, we have done something remarkable. Like the fact that we have languages right now that I'm speaking through, the fact that we have an online possibility to even share information, like, yo man, this is what my eyes are seeing, how your ears gonna see this. So do you see what I'm saying? I'm saying like the behavior of the human being has been so advanced compared to everything else here that it's like proof that there's a system admin, that there's a higher power. But now it's about the interaction of the human program with, in some sense, the ultimate programmer, the programmer beyond the program. You know, being religious should feel like you're in the presence. It should, like, if a peasant, imagine a king was like, yo peasant, you know, like, walk beside me, right? It's like, how would that peasant feel every day? As if it's in the presence of next level majesty, right? Now, when you're in the presence of God, the system admin, it's not like there's a king and we bow to and we get knighted, right? What it is, it's the highest ideal. That means it was as if like, yo man, how did the king run the kingdom, or how did the king feel among kings? The kings all seek the ultimate power, you see, because human beings are limited, right? But there is a power, the higher power is more limitless than them, is limitless. So what I mean is that we shouldn't get too duped by our energy levels. We shouldn't get too duped by the temporary and simulated aspects of life, and realize that we are actually in the presence of the original power. So we are existing in the same space. The simulated is existing in the same moment where the original is existing. Existed even before the simulation. That's what it means to be in a simulation, right? What it means to be in a simulation is you're inside somebody else's work. You're inside somebody else's world. You didn't create this world. You might have created what it means to you, but you did not create this world. Once you just acknowledge there is a greater design administration into the system going on, you'll suddenly notice. And it's just this feeling that if before I was giving the talks, before I was religious, I felt a sort of unified power with reality. I felt like the world was showing me everything. But when I realized there are things in this world that can happen that can render me powerless, like I could die tomorrow. I could just stop being, stop existing by the will of God. Or I could continue on, and I could be guided through different moments and experiences that which wills. And in this lifetime, as I go through, and as human beings just generally go through, there are moments you find yourself in. Moments you find yourself in where there is fear. And fear is kind of like you choosing, the past over the future. The possibility of the past feels way more safe maybe than the possibility of what is the future. But when you realize the past is a dead end, the future becomes way more interesting. When I say a dead end, I mean it's an ultimate landing point. So think of human curiosity as like a bird, and we're like, where does this bird finally land down in the context to the world? For a religious person, it is a return to the system admin. So in my view, by being religious, I'm someone who's living every day with the consciousness that as a simulated being, my soul, which is God knows, I will return to the original, and how I behaved in the simulated mattered. And throughout this whole trial and tribulation, I had to at the same time wake my species up by behaving as a part of the advanced humanity. The advanced humanity is not limited and defined by its borders, by where on this earth it opened its eyes. It's about the possibility of your eyes. It is about all the ways that you will happen that you don't know you will happen. All the probabilities to reality that can happen in every moment. And it doesn't matter how smart or foolish you are, the system's designed to go forth, and ultimately you have to make a decision. And what human beings are doing there, they are experientially, with their direct experience, tunneling through everyday's notions, right? So to me, it's very fascinating. Now, in this whole game of advancing civilization, this element and variable of the system admin has arose. So it's kind of like, okay, there's an expert in the room, we adjust to the expert, and then we build the advanced civilization. There's an ultimate original guiding force to the main operating system of reality, regardless of what sort of life we live or what sort of worldly motive you have. What really truly shows is a sophisticated being is someone who, if they ask them what is valuable to you, they won't say anything in the world. I think that's the test. Like, if I'm ever hiring, I'll be in this situation where I'll be like, I have a test for you. What is the most important value in the world? What's the most valuable thing? If the person says to win, I'll be like, you're not, you don't belong here. If the person says success, I'll be like, okay, go further. What sort of success is the ultimate value to life? I think deep down, we seek to experience the divine equilibrium. We seek to experience the divine harmony. We seek to find ourselves in a moment where man and God are not conflicted, and man and God and world are not conflicted. And it happens to the degree of not it adjusting to what man wants, but in some sense what is best for man just happening. As if one human being prayed from the one and only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all human beings with the ability to actualize their greatness, to in some sense realize that it doesn't matter if there's evil mods and there's like, you know, better worlds. It's a matter of just being like, I am here now, I am breathing now, I am an organism now, I'm a human being right now. I am being human in a place. I am being human on a planet. I am being human on a planet where so many different human beings are on, each having their own, living in their own language sphere, in their own cultural behavior sphere, and how their bodies are speaking a language of behavior that's accepted and not accepted by the societal norm, and how there's so many different societies that like just the fact that human beings haven't realized how ridiculous it is to judge, that human judgment will be so hilariously biased and flawed because the eyes of man are unique to his own position, but there are many positions in the world. And so how does it all go forth? And so when man connects to the higher power, and let's say in doing so, either it happens successfully, it's a successful connection, or it's a connection with air. If it's a connection with air, in some sense, man needs to look at everything he's doing. Because for me, the simple access to the highest power is through sincere repentance. You have to break down. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say you have to break down. You have to let go of everything you expect about everything. Do you believe somebody like me who was who was a futurist giving these talks? I went through this, and I in some sense allowed for one moment to become who I was before I believed in anything, like even getting close to the moment where I felt, I have a memory before I learned language where I was just sight in a room. And so it's like going to the simplicity of just purely being upon laying down one's ego armor, ego weapons, and one just reaches a point where they're like, okay, I release my claim to what reality has to be, and I acknowledge that there is one and only higher power here that is beyond any worldly definition and form. Then it's like the greatest relationship known to reality occurs. In the same way that if a character in a novel could suddenly communicate to the author and the author would respond. Do you understand how sacred it is? People think like, you know, prophets were just people. You think they were just people? It's like an author writing a character in a novel that has an ability to receive anything from the system admin. That means the way Abraham looked at the world, the way Esau, Jesus, looked at the world, the way all the different prophets would acknowledge that this whole world, this room has a higher power in it. Do you know? Do you see the future era of man? It is an era of humanity basking in the glory of the higher power. We are not alone, and it's as if the thing happened that, you know, the forces of the shadows didn't expect. a complete restructuring of human honor through the first notion of the system admin, the ultimate human strategy. We were not just united by our form and situation, we were united by that which is allowing all of us to be here at all right now, for it to continue. That means when you realize that the higher power has an ability to shift anything in any moment, you suddenly kind of, you kind of smile to yourself, in a playful way with the realization that why has the higher power kept you here? That means if all your expectations fade of reality, you are left at the mercy of the higher power, and you live every day wondering, okay, why is it still continuing? Where is my existence, unique DNA and presence required? What sort of realities will my existence enter that day? And what sort of spheres of communication would in some sense arise and emerge in every moment? What sophistication of a view will I have today before I close my eyes? How would I feel about the journey of my understanding in accordance to the clarity of reality, in accordance to this feeling that powers at bay, the ultimate power? It's as if I have searched long, and I am tired. And I have reached this point where I realize that it is not up to just one man. And so the greater games that man is involved is games of the human intelligence, which at some point will even physically surpass human need for a biology. That means it's like when the species mental processing reached such a high speed that human beings were like, guys, there's no point of moving anymore. We have to just put our bodies in these pods, and we will live like lifespans of like 200 to 250 years in these like pods, like growing in this like kind of like imagine like some sort of like immortal pod, right, with liquid in it, like immortal liquid or something in it. And so we just endlessly lived in that, right? And our minds lived so many lifetimes in like one biological lifetime that spanned 250, but the biological life was inactive in the sense, was active, so, like automated, but at the same time it's as if when we moved our hands, our hand didn't move, but the hand in our mind did move. What God has in store for mankind is fascinating. Honestly, I think my eyes, my soul, like what I've realized about my own soul is that I'm that kind of soul that is like, all right, system admin, I see it. And at the same time, I understand it's in your control. And I understand I'm a limited entity. And what would you like to see? What qualities as a being does the ultimate want to see through me? Like that to me is just remarkable. This doesn't mean to forget the ego. It means the ego is no longer burdened with giving meaning to everything. Your identity is just something like a hologram you project when communicating to people. Really, how you're functioning is a deeper viewer. This deeper viewer is a proof of you're in a transcendental world. It's as if they're like, yo man, prove to me that I'm like a mind and a soul and beyond this. And I'll be like, how do you know you're anything? If you know you're physical, is that knowing physical? And if you know you're non-physical, is that knowing non-physical? You see what the beyond implies, why we need the presence of the higher power, because the formula for mankind, what mankind's effort is here, is incomplete, and it's not just completed by man. And we're lucky that there is destiny. The person is like, yo man, I'm at least destined for something. Like just that's an honor in itself. I am destined to move. Like either somebody can be destined to be like Superman saving like people, and people are like, yo man, what is destiny? And somebody could be like, yo man, I drank a glass of water or a glass of orange juice. Like, yo, I just lived my destiny. I completed my destiny. It could have the same value as how Superman would feel. It's just by the ability of having a privilege to attend this great event with a great host. And so now humanity has to really be careful, because it's as if all humanity is being piloted to a state where they are not defined. That means their mind, like your true intelligence, is not defined by worldly form, which means you're in a state where you notice the higher system administration and the divine surveillance state, and at the same time, your ego is in accordance to the necessity of expression in the moment. You know, it's hilarious, you know, like you see in like dating shows, the people have gone to a restaurant, they're like, hey, what do you do? Right, and all of this. But if they imagine like two mystics, or not mystics, let me say it, like two deep thinkers, you know, they went on a date in a restaurant, and they're like, okay, so what do you think we are as beings? There's something brilliant that can happen here. And honestly, it requires every human being looking at the value the world has for them and being like, yo, it's as if the context is the greatest power is here, and ability for the greatest decisions to be made is here. And then there's just the human effort. So it's kind of like human effort connected with direction. Pretty much the human destiny is the velocity of how civilization advances. It's that means in what direction and at what speed. Right now we're living at a speed again where the body is, what do you call it? The body is can follow the mind's speed. But if the mind moves faster, if human information processing increases, then it's going to be interesting how the divine guides us to the next interface. Anyways, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. All praise due to the Lord of the worlds. Thank you for listening.